Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Arbor Adventures, Season 1, Episode 12. And we continue telling the story of Sun Elf, Rogue Assassin, Dolos, and his dire wolf, Oe, his ally, Dragonborn fighter, Grax, and Erisarn, the third daughter of the Enclave, Galena. And we continue, examining the tale of the Sun Elf Rogue Assassin Dolos. So at this point, Erisarn has come to him and said, we're waiting for Forge Lord Shram to spark the war that will put almost every, human on Faerun to war with every dwarf, right? But I want to jump in front of that, and I want to take Phandalin for myself, right? And she asks Dolos to help her, right, to be a co-leader with her. And he refuses. He's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. And at this point, he goes on this walk, and he describes what Dolos is thinking to himself. And Dolos is thinking to himself, I want to adventure. I want to, get out there and just walk the path of Faerun. And I don't want to be caught up in all of this, right? And so this sparked a conversation between the Dungeon Master and the Gold Dragon Master, right? And I was like, well, I definitely understand what you're saying. But I think the reason that Dolos is in this situation is he has slain a lot of people with this cursed blade, Thove, the hate of Vecna, and he has made himself invaluable to many powerful people, and the momentum around him from being at the center of these adventures has pushed him to the forefront of being a catalyst within Faerun, right? And that essentially what you're saying is like, what you as the Gold Dragon Master is saying about Dolos is, it's kind of like Mario Andretti, who won the Indianapolis 500 like 4 times. He's saying, what if I could deliver to groceries? And you're like, like your skill demands way more than that, And so, but it was an interesting moment, and I have to say it made me think about, the pace of the campaigns I run. Things happen and things move forward, and the narrative grows a natural urgency and a natural momentum, right? Which frankly, I'm very thankful to the Gold Dragon Master for playing in this campaign, because my campaigns really aren't, I realize this now very much, they're not like anybody else's. I think there's 2 things that are happening in Dungeons & Dragons right now. There is we know this for a fact. They did a study, and Wizards of the Coast found that many, like the majority, like 51% of all campaigns stop at session 6. The Dungeon Master just is overwhelmed, doesn't know where to go, can't handle one of the players at the table. All these different problems happen. And then I think the other end of it is people running for 6 months, 16 months, 26 months, 36 months, super long campaigns, right? And I will say, I doubt that most of those cover even half the ground that I cover in 12 sessions, right? So the pace is very high, and I set that pace, right? And so with that said, Dolos comes back to Tiefling Garnet Merchant, Neverwinter, Tiefling Garnet Merchant Jesps Mance, right? Which is a buzzing hub of activity as he continues to make a fortune, getting ready for whatever war comes, right? And Dolos comes back, and Dolos said, how much time do I have before Shram's meeting, right? And I said, what do you want to get done, right? And he's like, I want to talk to Grax. And I realized that Dolos had let Erisarn go talk to Grax to get Grax to accept this co-leadership role. So Grax was not her first choice. She really wanted to lead with Dolos. but she doesn't want to do this by herself, right? She's the third daughter, right? And she's doing something big here, and she wants help, right? So she went to Grax, and this was interesting, and I could tell that Dolo, the gold Dragon Master, really had some concerns about his player character losing Grax, which I was like, as an ally, right? And I was like, that was really, that really touched me, that ally really had become important to Dolos, right, and to the Gold Dragon Master. And so I said, you absolutely have time to go talk to him, right? So he goes and he talks to Grax, and he says, listen, Grax, I know Arisarn. Did Arisarn talk to you? And he said, yes, Arisarn talked to me and asked me. And he said, and I turned her down. And the reason why is I would like to lead with Arisarn. I think Arisarn is right. I think that having a third city would be good. But I am now a champion. I have, when I met you, I was an adventurer. Now I'm a champion, right? I have the sword of Toravir. I know that my destiny is great, right? And I know that I'm going to do huge things. But I owe, all of my strength to you. And I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to serve Arisarn. My blade is promised to you, right? And Dolo says, and then this is what Dolo says. He says, Grax, Dragonborn fighter Grax, thank you so much. Your service to me has been stellar. And I know you are my follower, and I know my blade is always, your blade is always ready to serve me, and I thank you. However, I release you from service to me, right? And then he said, not only do I release you from service to me, but I am going to give you Oe, and I want you to take Oe to Enclave Galena, where Arisarn lives. Do not follow Arisarn into that war. I don't think that's the best thing for you to do, but I really want you to take Oe to Enclave Galena and find out why Oe, my direwolf, why he liked the third daughter of Galena, right? I want him to be safe, and I want you to take him there. And Grax says, of course, and it sounds like you're about to leave, and I wish you safety wherever you go, right? And then the two of them embrace, and at that point, Dolos gives his direwolf, Oe, to Grax, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second, what's happening now, right? And I really, and this all is coming about because, and I should say, all right, so the reason all these decisions start getting made is at the beginning of the 12th session, I did something which is, might be unusual. I have never heard of another dungeon master doing this. Sometimes I think, I've heard dungeon masters do it in different ways. I think they would have done what I did in like 3 weeks or 3 months, right? But we went from episode 11 to episode 12, and at the beginning of this, and we went about 10 minutes in, and I said, listen, tonight is the last episode of the Dolos campaign, all right? And we're going to reach the end of the story tonight, and the way we're going to do that is you're going to make decisions and you're going to make rolls, right? But we've reached a point where Dolos is one of the biggest things that this happened was there was so much story happening, and we had reached a point where Faerun was going to crack in half or Faerun was going to stabilize, right? And Dolos is at the front edge of that conflict, right? And I realized that in episode 11, here was the trigger. Dolos got a dragon's horde, Mayan Shark's horde, and he didn't even have time or need to get into any of it, right? Because this was really fascinating to me. Crown and Skull had made it so that his vision of Dolos was already accomplished in 12 sessions. He wanted to play a dark, brooding assassin who was effective and dangerous and an adventurer. And he did that. He did that in the 12 sessions, right? And so we certainly hadn't reached the end of Dolos's story, but we absolutely had reached the end of movie 1 in the trilogy, right? It was the end, the end of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings, the first book, right? And I was like, we need to wrap this campaign and then decide what we're doing next, right? And we have some Crown and Skull rules adjustments to make, and we have some changes to make on how we use magic, because we've reached a point in Dolos's journey where magic is going to play a huge part going forward, right? And I said, so this campaign will end tonight. So at that point, the Gold Dragon Master was aware he was going to help Shran defeat the woodcutters. He was going to ensure the woodcutters secured Phandalin and drove out all the dwarven miners, or he was going to help Erosarn secure Phandalin for him and Erosarn, or a path of his own. And that's exactly what he chose, a path of his own. And so at that point, Dolos gives his direwolf away to Grax, releases Grax from serving him, right? And then he then goes to Jesp, and he says, Neverwinter Tiefling Merchant Jesp, thank you so much. Your doors have always been open to me. I need a few last favors. And Jesp was like, anything. He said, you have made me richer. I was rich when I met you. I'm far richer and more powerful now. And that is thanks to you. Thank you. And also, thank you for your, for asking for help. So few people do that. And in this circumstance, you asking me for help has turned my aid into gold, right? And so he has a good closing with Jesp. Then he sends, then he makes sure that Mindardus is buried in Icewind Dale. He tasks Jesp with completing that, right? That Icewind Dale is buried in honor, that Mindardus is buried with honor in Icewind Dale. And then finally, this shocked me. I could not believe this. He said, I want you to send a crate to Candlekeep, right? Take Thove, and he pulls out Thove, the Hate of Vecna, and he gives it to Jesp, and he said, put this in a crate and send it to Candlekeep, to my brother. And he wrote a letter to his brother saying, brother, I know you wanted to complete Vornway's work, and I know we argued over this, but I love you, brother, and I am giving Thove to you to complete Vornway's work. I wish you safety, and I wish you to know that I always cared for you, and in this last act, perhaps my care is the deepest at this moment, right? So Sun Elf Rogue Assassin takes the item that made him a great assassin and sends it to his brother Farrowyn to complete Vornway's work, to find the champion, and and then have that champion killed by Thove, and have that champion ready for the Battle of Wills with Vecna to push it back. Then Sun Elf Rogue and Jeff says Mindardus will be buried in Icewind Dale with honor, and Thove, the Hate of Vecna, this cursed blade, will reach your brother in Candlekeep safely. I will use the best adventurers, and I will spend my own money to get this done, right? And then finally, Sun Elf Rogue Assassin Dolos says goodbye to Tiefling Merchant Jesp, makes his way to the harbor, and finds Captain Whiston's sea ghost, and commissions the entire ship to take him to the Moonshae Isles, and all the way, and then go to the farthest west isle in the Moonshae Isles, Norland, to the farthest west beach. And finally, Dolos gets off the ship, travels to the farthest beach on the far west side of the island, and meets Volna, the seamstress who worked with Farsharn, the caravan owner between Neverwinter and Waterdeep. And he meets her there on the beach, and he enjoys persimmon fruits with her there on the beach. And Dolos, far from war, far from death, and far from the cursed blade, smiles into the sun and eats persimmons with Volna. And that is the end of Arbor Adventures Campaign 1, The Tale of the Sun Elf Rogue Assassin Dolos, his direwolf Oe, his fallen ally Parak, his ascending ally Dragonborn fighter Grax with the Sword of Toravir. And that is the entire story of all the way to the Parsimon fruit. And I am very grateful for letting me share it with you. And I am incredibly grateful to the Gold Dragon Master who worked with me and worked with the Math Rocks to make an incredible story. And I could not be more happy with how this campaign ended. And once again, thank you for letting me share it with you. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion on Campaign 1 of Arbor Adventures, Season 1, Episodes 1 through Episode 12. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion on this campaign. And when you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.